And a very happy Tuesday to you at 12:07 in the West. Talk Radio 790 KABC, The John Phillips Show. Mr. Randy Wangs in Culver City.
John, we always appreciate it when we get tips on hot sound from our audience. We have the best audience, and occasionally they email us stories or video clips that they know we'll want to hear on the air. Rick wrote in at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com and wanted to make sure I listened to our sister station, KNBR, the sports station in the Bay Area, because San Francisco Mayor Daniel Lurie went on with Murph and Marcus to talk about recruiting NBA players for the NBA All-Star Game. And listen to this.
You know, I think Mayor Lurie, in fairness, is sort of getting into a little bit of the hard-hitting part about like a business-friendly environment, right? San Francisco has been accused of not being business-friendly. Would making Thrive City an entertainment zone kind of pleases the business owner, right?
Absolutely.
That's the first time I've ever heard it pronounced by a robot.
Absolutely.
Even Queen Elizabeth got in on the action.
Yes, she did. Hold on, I have to pull that up. Queenie, do you want to comment on all this? Of course you do.
Absolutely.
When you said that there was an email you wanted to reference, I thought you were going to reference the email with the picture of George Gascon walking his dogs.
Not that one. Or the email about the person who now likes to describe Barbara Ferrer as his girlfriend.
That's an interesting case for lust.
I want to read it, but I shouldn't read it.
He got pretty specific, didn't he?
Oh, what the hell? I'll read it. I could use a laugh. This comes from listener John, who said, "You mentioned my girlfriend again. Under Barbara Ferrer's white lab coat, the queen of clean dons a faux leather corset, crotchless boxer shorts, black sots, scabies, and a pasty. No, I don't mean pasties. She's just whiter than a dead tuna's belly under there."
That is an interesting crush to have. What are you going to do? 800-222-5222 is the telephone number, 1-800-222-5222. Well, one of the big questions that California homeowners are wrestling with right now is what to do about the insurance crisis. Many of us have lost our homeowners' insurance policies. Many of us will likely lose them in the future. Some companies, like my company, State Farm, the company that I do business with, they won't even sell you a new policy in California, and they will honor policies that have been grandfathered in that they've not decided to drop quite yet. But if you're looking to buy a policy on a new property with State Farm, you're out of luck. So all of this leads to the question, what does the future look like in the state of California for insurance?
Ricardo, any ideas?
I'm very kind of sketchy.
Oh, we know.
For more on a look on how insurance is affecting the entire state, here is Fox 26 in Fresno.
News team continued to look at home insurance rates here in California. As we've reported, the state has seen significant rate hikes, especially over the last 5 years. That has a lot of people asking tonight, what is next for all Californians and the home insurance industry that was already in crisis? Fox 26 News reporter Myra Franco has more on the future of home insurance in the state.
We've already witnessed insurance companies pull out of the California market due to the wildfire risk. Others have dropped customers who live in wildfire-prone areas.
And if you're not in wildfire-prone areas, how about we just drop everybody?
You know, honest to God, at this point, it's so screwed up in California, I don't even know what to do to fix it. But I can almost guarantee you that one component of whatever the fix is going to be insurance premiums exploding.
And have pulled out of writing policies for them. Those homeowners left high and dry, making it more difficult for them to get full coverage insurance or none at all. Could the insurance crisis get worse after the LA wildfires?
Yes.
It already has gotten worse.
We asked California's Deputy Insurance Commissioner if we could expect...
Deputy. Of course, Ricardo Lara's not going to do this.
What the hell? This is the biggest crisis facing the state right now. He is the elected insurance commissioner, and he's too busy to talk about it?
Yep.
We asked California's Deputy Insurance Commissioner if we could expect to see even higher premiums across the state. Here's what he told me.
Don't forget, State Farm already asked for that emergency 30% rate hike.
Okay, there has to be a reason that Ricardo Lara is sending out his deputy commissioner. Either he went out and found someone who can talk, and now this person is going to do all of the media for that office, or he's just leading the lamb out to get slaughtered.
It starts with holding insurance companies accountable.
You know, they actually issued a check. They actually told us that they had closed my account and that we were settled. Things like that. They're trying to force you to take it, basically.
When you look at what you had and you want to replace it with the same thing, and that number to rebuild, if it just gets unreasonable, then that's a decision that some people it's made for them. They don't have that option to do that and rebuild.
By the way, what's an interesting wrinkle to all this? Let's say your house did burn down and you had a mortgage on it, and you've decided that you don't want to rebuild. The mortgage company can take your payment.
Wait, repeat that again?
So if your house burned down, but you decide you don't want to rebuild, you just want to move on, if you had a mortgage, the mortgage company can halt your payment from the insurance company.
Oh.
Because they have a vested interest in you rebuilding that thing.
Oh, of course they do.
There seems to be a common theme here. Wildfires tend to affect everyone and everything. And wildfires have a track record of not if they will happen, but when in parts of California.
Must be sweeps with the music.
Yeah, no kidding. Sounds like an after-school special.
So what did we see? After past wildfires, we saw insurance companies raising rates.
So will that happen again after the devastating wildfires in Southern California?
Yes, it will. It's already happening.
Why do they keep asking that question?
We asked California's Deputy Insurance Commissioner Michael Soller if all Californians would take the economic hit on their home insurance bills. His answer?
We expect to see insurance rates being more reliable, not seeing...
That doesn't mean anything.
No, more reliable. They could be reliably up. They could be reliably down. They could be reliably static.
More reliable, not seeing the massive spikes that we've seen after some of our former wildfires.
You just got asked by State Farm last week if you would jack up rates 20%.
And didn't they just get a rate increase approved by that office last year?
Of 30%.
That's because Soller says changes are coming soon under a new state regulation issued by Insurance Commissioner Ricardo Lara.
Oh, boy, you knew his name was going to get mentioned.
I'm very kind of sketchy.
Of course, it wouldn't be an insurance story without him.
Under the sustainable insurance strategy, the regulations are clear.
It's hard to hear him under the music, though.
Yeah, no kidding.
If you want to utilize these new regulations.
Okay, does somebody in the newsroom have like a nephew that's an aspiring organist and they just had to get something on TV so they could get a credit?
This is like the kind of music they would play underneath the vignette on Maury before we find out what the results of the paternity test are.
You need to write more policies in the wildfire distressed parts of our state.
And if you look at the fine print of that regulation, you can jack up your rates. Ricardo Lara has promised to approve rate hikes within 60 days as opposed to what it used to be, would take up to a year, maybe 2 years. And you only have to write 5% more policies.
That's why he's sending this guy out there, because this guy is giving us nothing but bad news.
You need to take people out of the FAIR Plan wherever they are in our state. You need to take those policies back.
But Consumer Watchdog President Jamie Court says he doesn't buy it.
He's allowing him to raise rates on everyone in the hopes...
We don't need the cash register sound effect twice in the span of 10 seconds, guys.
Which market is this again?
It's Fresno.
Okay. Then I'll give him a pass.
It's like if you're used to watching American reality TV and then you watch a reality TV show produced in New Zealand, the production values are admittedly lower.
When I was in New Mexico, I went there for the New Mexico Bowl a few years back, and I was watching the local news. You think this is something? There was a story they did about porch pirates stealing Christmas gifts. And they sent what had to be a 22-year-old reporter out dressed like an elf to do the report. And he made Paul Lynn look like John Wayne.
Good old reliable KOB Albuquerque.
He's allowing him to raise rates on everyone in the hopes that they're going to insure more people in the wildfire areas. But there's no guarantee that they...
This music is so distracting.
But there's no guarantee that they will. There's no requirement that they have to.
Zoller says
maybe what they're going for here is it's like they're playing the music at the funeral of the state of California because no one can live here anymore.
I guess, but even bands have to take a break. Don't they work union?
Zoller says he hopes the new regulations will stabilize insurance industry costs and keep them from being passed down to consumers.
Let's not forget, one of the other things that Ricardo Lara put in his regulations that are supposed to save the insurance industry is the way it used to work was if the FAIR Plan goes bankrupt, the insurance companies have to bail it out because the FAIR Plan is a creation of the insurance companies refusing to do business. Now, thanks to Ricardo Lara, if the FAIR Plan goes bankrupt, the insurance companies get to pass that cost right on to you immediately.
To be honest, Randy, that sounds kind of sketch.
I'm very kind of sketch.
Plus, he says it will bring relief to many homeowners who are on the FAIR Plan who are already paying triple the price.
Okay, that's the third cash register.
Boy, they like that button. You ever go to a minor league baseball game and whenever a foul ball is hit into the stands, they have a sound effect of glass breaking?
Is this what small market radio is like too?
Probably.
Are already paying triple the price with very little coverage.
For people who've been through it, having those options again, is critical.
Joel Preheim knows that all too well. He lost his home and...
Okay, now the music sounds a little like it is a hospital drama from the 70s.
Well, they're transitioning to some poor bastard who just lost his house.
Joel Preheim knows that all too well. He lost his home and everything in it to the Creek Fire in 2020. He says he had planned to retire in that home, but a year after he bought it in 2019, he was dropped by his insurance company, so he had to jump on the FAIR Plan. 5 years after...
Notice how as soon as she said FAIR Plan, the music got more ominous.
Oh, yes.
Jump on the FAIR Plan. 5 years after the devastating fire, he and his wife are still rebuilding.
Oh, boy.
Oh, God. So we have that to look forward to if something unfortunate were to happen.
So we're back in Fresno now, staying in a rental, and eventually we'll move back up into the house that's behind us.
But the process to start over again was far from easy. He says dealing with his insurance company was a nightmare.
It's just not fun, and they stress you, and it takes a lot to continue to fight to get your money. It does.
Wait, these people say that they're like a good neighbor and they're on your side and that you're in their hands and they've got your back and all the other nonsense.
Well, this is also where the company you do business with matters. I have an agent who is local, so if there's a problem, I call my local agent. If the company gives me the runaround, I just call the person who is my point person, who is the salesperson that sold me my policies. For a lot of these companies, you don't have an agent that's local and in your community. They have an 800 number, so you got to call Res. And when you got to call Res, you know who you're going to get. Bobby in Bangladesh. So you think it's hard to rebuild your house dealing with the nitwits here. Try dealing with a foreign call center.
On top of that, he says they had to replace everything they lost that they needed while waiting for reimbursement from the insurance company. It was a different story for 2025 Southern California wildfire victims.
Now people can get advance upfront payments when they have a total loss that really helps them get back on their feet quickly.
Unlike the years it took Preheim.
They come back and they basically lowballed us. They offered us money for the house that we obviously didn't think we could get rebuilt for that money. And so I kept after them for more money and up to our limit. And we finally came to an agreement, and we got our money recovered.
You know, sometimes when you hear how the sausage is made in a certain industry, you get a little disgusted.
Well, here's some unsolicited advice from someone who's not qualified to give it, but I'm going to do it anyway. If your home burns down in a fire and you feel like your insurance company is not being fair with you, go hire an attorney. Attorneys are expensive, and they can be a pain to deal with, but you want someone negotiating on your behalf who understands what the law is. I've learned this with anything related to construction, insurance, whatever. You don't want to pay the bill for an attorney if you don't have to, but it's worth it in the long run, because if they help you avoid a problem that's a big problem, they're worth their weight in gold.
In full, about 2.5 years later.
He says the company switched his adjuster 6 times during that wait, losing some vital records in the process.
You had to negotiate the payout from your house burning down for 2.5 years?
Hire the attorney.
If I wasn't retired dealing with this process, I have no idea if I would have been able to spend the time to get recovered. It's an awful lot of emails, and there's a lot of phone calls that you make.
Look at this poor man. He's a retiree. He wants to be hanging out at the McDonald's at 6 a.m. with all the other old guys in town. He wants to be on the golf course. He wants to be on a cruise ship. And instead of doing all that, he's spending his time fighting with Rez.
Periods you have to go through.
Hardships, he says, you shouldn't have to go through to get what you're covered for.
Oh, my. Well, you know, you go through all the emotions. You go through the anger. You go to the...
Even the dog is upset.
Yeah, the dog's crying.
You go to the, you know, am I going to get recovered on this and actually be able to go forward rebuilding my house? Or how much money am I going to have to actually rebuild my house?
See, insurance company, because you didn't pay this guy out, that dog is obviously going hungry.
Yeah, well, is he watching Old Yeller?
Am I going to have to lawyer up?
And then just where they're at with the insurance process. And some people just didn't want to deal with that battle, and you know, they decided to just move on and find somewhere else.
And that's when you get the unscrupulous person that wants to buy your property for an incredibly lowball value, and you just want to get out of Dodge.
Well, at a certain point, you just can't deal with the drama anymore.
I think in the Altadena area, we already have our first house that's for sale of something that got burned down, and they're selling it for $500,000.
Ultimately,
seems about right.
Ultimately, Irwin says more people chose to walk away from the community they called home.
When your policy might say 20%, if it's a part of a natural disaster and we see plywood, lumber go up, I mean, sometimes it's 200, 250%. That's 3-4 times the cost, and it's just it's that 20% in the policy is not going to come close to the actual replacement cost.
But for Preheim, he says his long fight was worth it.
I'm excited to get retired again, and I'm excited to actually...
He had to unretire.
Well, fighting with the insurance company is a full-time job.
I'm excited to actually have a really nice house to retire back to. And certainly this house is different than the house that we had before, but it'll be a very nice house to live in.
Even with the high costs and inadequate coverage of current home insurance plans.
I don't know, if insurance will get better or get worse.
It'll get worse.
Much, much worse.
But I do know that insurance today isn't exactly where it needs to be, and I would sure like to see things change.
Preheim said United policyholders helped him navigate the claim process all the way through. It is a nonprofit organization that provides resources and guidance to insurance consumers after disasters.
They're also the advocacy group that goes on all these local TV stations to say the insurance companies are broke. You don't get it.
You notice, by the way, that it wasn't the elected insurance commissioner that helped these people?
Yes. I am aware of that.
For more information about it, you can head on over to our website at kmph.com.
All right, I think we've gotten enough there. There is the future of insurance in California. Boy, does it look bleak.
What's the point of having an insurance commissioner if they won't go on the local news channels and explain what's going on to the public? They will not meet privately and help people whose homes burned down in the fire who are getting jerked around by their insurance companies. What does he do all day where he's so busy he doesn't have time to do any of this stuff?
I mean, I think I know, but I don't think I can say it on the air.
No, you can't.
I'm very kind of sketchy.
There's your answer. If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, if you missed yesterday's episode and you want to find out what you missed out on, that's easy to do.
All you got to do is go to KABC.com, click on podcasts, go to the Apple Podcast app, iHeart, Spotify, search for The John Phillips Show, hit subscribe. You can download all the episodes. You can do a Google on the YouTube or get that handy-dandy KABC app. Search KABC AM in the Apple App Store, the Android Store. It's the easiest way to listen live to this radio station and download all the podcasts. Find out what got Katie Porter to say this.
What a bunch of bull.
Let's go to Robert in San Pedro. Robert, hello.
Hey, good morning, gentlemen, or afternoon.
Hi there.
It's over for the insurance company. They're not going to cover it. And regarding Ricardo Lara, they need to get a forensic team to find out the money, and I bet you he takes off to a country with no extradition. And I bet you, gentlemen, thank you for having me. Enjoy your day.
Thank you for the call. A lot of what comes out of that office, the California Insurance Commissioner's office, makes no sense. And usually, if it makes no sense, there's a reason. I wonder if any newspapers are looking into what that reason may be.
I'm very kind of sketchy.
Follow this man like a hawk.
President Donald Trump has taken aim at the California high-speed rail, or I guess I should say the lack of high-speed rail in California. That project has been a boondoggle for years. Voters approved it over a decade ago. The project is supposed to be complete by now, but it's nowhere near complete. In fact, there's just a tiny fraction of the line that has been laid in the Central Valley of California out in the middle of nowhere. And now Donald Trump wants to know what happened to the money.
For more, here is KSEE in the Fresno area.
President Trump now calling for an investigation into California high-speed rail.
He called it the worst managed project he has ever seen and says he is going to investigate.
And then he said, and I've seen a lot of bad projects.
Well, you know what's funny is prior to this, the big boondoggle that everyone would talk about was the Big Dig in Boston, where it was supposed to be this new, I guess, an underground freeway. And it was supposed to be done in a certain amount of time, took forever, went way over budget, but eventually it was completed, even though everyone got taken for a ride, so to speak. In California, we've all been taken for a ride, but it's never, ever, ever going to be finished. And let's just say lightning strikes and it does. This is technology that's already over a decade old. We're going to have something brand new that is already outdated before it even runs.
It's more than a decade old. You know how old high-speed rail is as a concept? Japan built one in the 60s. And it only took 5 years.
He is going to investigate it himself. KC24's Catherine Phillips is live now in studio with us. So, Kat, the Fresno mayor is now responding to Trump's comments. So what did he have to say?
Well, Emily and Eric, Mayor.
He likes all that money coming to Fresno.
Oh, sure. Those are jobs to him.
Well, Emily and Eric, Mayor Dyer says he's really not that shocked that the president made these comments. He says he understands and shares the president's concerns about the cost and how long the project has taken, but he wants him to know just how much the city of Fresno could benefit from high-speed rail.
One of the things that's so emblematic of not just the failures of this, but the failures of the state is at the beginning of the year, right before the fires broke out, Gavin Newsom had a press conference in the Bakersfield area to announce that finally, after 15 years, all the permitting has been done for the entire line. It took 15 years to do the permits.
High-speed rail to them is the same thing as homelessness or crime. It doesn't matter if you get the result that you're looking for. It doesn't matter if you get a train that's up and running and operational. It doesn't matter if you get homeless people off the streets and living in a home somewhere. It just matters based on how much money you've spent, how many people you've hired, how many programs you've created. That's what it's about. That's the metric of success to them.
Well, and the first thing that they'll say when they're asked about why has still nothing been built, they're just starting to lay down track now, and only for that Wasco to Merced portion that goes from nowhere to nowhere. The first thing they'll tell you is, well, we've created 10,000 jobs.
As if that's an accomplishment?
It's done really great for the sandwich shops that are outside the construction zones, Johnny.
By the way, let's just say that you work for high-speed rail. How fulfilling could that job be where you just show up every day wearing a hard hat, sitting around doing nothing?
The train that's being built between Los Angeles and San Francisco is the worst managed project I think I've ever seen, and I've seen some of the worst.
While answering questions in the Oval Office from reporters on Israel and Gaza.
Yeah, the question had nothing to do with high-speed rail. That's just what was on his mind.
Good. I'm glad he slammed him.
While answering questions in the Oval Office from reporters on Israel and Gaza, President Donald Trump switching topics and not holding back when it comes to his critiques of high-speed rail.
They made it much shorter. So now it's at little places way away from San Francisco and way away from Los Angeles. No, we're going to start a big investigation on that because I've never seen anything like it.
Even Scott Wiener went on a very left-leaning podcast and was asked about the failure of high-speed rail. And even Scott Wiener said, yeah, it made no sense to start this thing in the Central Valley. You could have started by connecting the Bay Area, and then at least you would have had something by now, and people would have used it, and then you could build the rest of it. Instead, they built the middle first that doesn't go anywhere.
No, and here's the honest-to-God truth. The future is regional airports. If you need to go from the south to the north, doing it by airplane is the way to go. It's less than an hour. The flight is very short. And if you live in Long Beach and you can fly from Long Beach, it's great. If you live in the Valley and you can fly from Burbank, it's great. That's the future.
His two big complaints, the cost and the lengthy timeline. Fresno Mayor Jerry Dyer has been a proponent of high-speed rail for years, but says he understands.
I wonder if you could actually get a chart of the amount of time and money that it's taken to build so far nothing, that it's not supposed to any of this be completed until 2033 for just that Central Valley section, and how many flights have departed between the Los Angeles and San Francisco area in the last 15 years.
Well, this is also a function of just being a one-party state, where you just declare it to be a success, you congratulate one another for their leadership, and the newspapers just print it. And everyone just thinks everything's moving along swimmingly. Oh, they're a little behind, but what are you going to do? That always happens with these projects. And there are no consequences. The thing that Trump is doing here is he's bringing consequences back home for all of these failures. And when you start looking underneath stones and you figure out where that money went, how much do you want to bet a lot of that money was stolen?
Fresno Mayor Jerry Dyer has been a proponent of high-speed rail for years, but says he understands where Trump is coming from.
I can speak firsthand to the delays that we've seen in Fresno and the impact that that's had on downtown Fresno and Chinatown, our ability to revitalize.
I wonder how many roads have been closed for years and years and years for construction that's not happening.
Well, imagine if your property was taken through eminent domain for this train that you know is never going to be built, and you're a farmer or you've got something going on in the Central Valley, and they forced you to sell your property at a price that they determined so they could just sit there and not do anything with it.
And we've had a lot of roads closed for longer than they should have been. But I also understand that this is the first high-speed rail that's being developed in the United States.
Dyer also says if Trump does...
Again, Japan started building theirs in 1960. It was done in 1965.
And how far over budget are they on this project?
Well, they have spent $10 billion when the original estimate was $30 billion. Now it's $110 billion.
And you better figure that in bananas, because apes will be controlling the world by the time they get this done.
Dyer also says if Trump does launch an investigation into HSR, he would want to know what he finds out. However, he doesn't think that means construction or funding for the project should stop.
I don't disagree with the need to have questions answered about the delays and the overruns of cost. But I do believe we still need to get this project finished.
By the time this project is done, we'll have those transporter devices from Star Trek.
He just looks at this as a jobs project. That's the only thing that matters to him. I get it. If you're the mayor of Fresno and you have a bunch of high-paying jobs that come into your community, you're going to do what you have to do to keep them there. But from the point of view of everyone else, those of us who are paying the bill, this is a complete waste of our money.
On the state level, Trump's concerns are in line with many Republican lawmakers in Sacramento. State Assembly member David Tongipa agreeing with the president's concerns. This week, he introduced AB 377, which calls on HSR to provide a detailed funding plan.
Yeah, that's not going to get signed by Gavin.
No way.
Gavin wouldn't even sign the bipartisan bill that wanted to audit all of Gavin's homeless spending.
No, because if you do that, people are going to go to prison. And people who are close to him are probably going to go to prison.
I'm thankful that we're getting a pretty watchful eye. We need that transparency and accountability, and I'm just glad that the president's looking at it.
Newsom announced they began construction on the railhead in Shafter. State officials say just to build HSR between Bakersfield and Merced could cost $35 billion, and it won't get done until around 2030 to 2033. But overall, to connect L.A. to San Francisco, it will cost over $100 billion. We're live tonight.
And no estimate for when that would be done.
No. So it was supposed to be done years ago, and now the new estimate is that it can go from Bakersfield to Merced by 2033.
That's the best estimate. They're already announcing last week that they're not going to meet that deadline. But yes, the original estimate when this was put to the voters in 2008 and they voted on it, and it was being planned years before that, was that the entire thing would be operational in 2020.
Yeah, they just need to implode what they have like it's the old Stardust Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas. Let's go to Josh in Hacienda Heights. Josh, hello.
Hey, Johnny. I just wanted to say that the high-speed rail from the 909 to Las Vegas is going to be up and running before this high-speed rail to nowhere in California.
Probably, because if that's completed by the private sector, they'll get it done, because if they go over on time and they go over on budget, that's going to cost them money. And specifically, it's going to cost the casinos money, and the casinos don't want to lose.
And they want to have this running by 2028 for the Olympics, so fans can go from L.A. to Vegas.
Oh, yeah. Now, here's a question. I wonder if they'll put the video poker machines on the train.
And they go active as soon as you hit Prim?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I hope so. That the degenerate gambler I am, I'm booking my tickets as soon as it opens.
I'll tell you. I was talking to a friend of mine who works in the restaurant industry and lives in Las Vegas. And after he gets off his shift, he goes to just a local neighborhood bar. And in Las Vegas, just the neighborhood bars have video poker and slot machines and video blackjack and all of those games that you can just sit there and play. And I thought to myself, if I lived there, I'd be going to meetings.
Yep. Hey, Johnny, before we break here, let's take Joe in Orange County. Joe, hello.
Hey, Mr. Phillips, Mr. Wang. Yeah, I was a benefactor of the light rail project up until about 10 years ago. I I got to be careful what I say here, but I worked for a company that was involved in the surveying through the Central Valley. But even before that, 15 years ago, even before it went to vote of the people, another good friend of mine had an engineering firm, was doing preliminary studies for the thing. And his comment back then, when I asked him the question, is this thing ever going to happen? And he goes, no, probably not, but we're making a ton of money on it.
Well, I think that's the attitude pretty much across the board.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, I had to back up and take my check. I was involved in these surveys, and this company, these surveys are still being done of areas in the Central Valley where there's, as of within the last couple of years, no construction's being done. The weekly surveys are being done, and at pretty great cost. And, I mean, if you get to Fresno and some of these little towns, Fresno's been sodden too by this high-speed rail. It's mind-boggling, and it's never going to happen, and it's just a huge, colossal waste of money. But I hate to say it, but I get paid quite well for about 5 years on it.
Hey, good for you, buddy.
Yeah, I mean, it's and I'm asking questions, and people looking at me funny and saying, hey, what are you asking these questions for? But no, I just and they don't even know how they're going to bore through the San Gabriel Mountains. I think that's still not determined. And they're saying if they can figure out a way to do it because of things like the San Andreas Fault, it's going to take 4 or 5 years to do it. And getting back to my engineering friend 10, 15 years ago, he said, if you're going to have a high-speed rail, the tracks have to be straight. And he goes, there's so many curves and twists on this thing that it's not going to be high speed.
All right.
It might be faster than Amtrak, but it's not going to be high speed. But anyway.
Thank you for the call, sir. I appreciate it. And Randy, maybe he can afford to go to Las Vegas and play some of that video poker with all the money he made on high-speed rail that's never going to happen.
It'll go quick. Watch out.